It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
All right, this next one is from Jonathan. He says, what is your best proven advice for how to break bad habits or discipline with debt to turn your life around? So maybe he or a friend or family member is having some problems with debt. What advice would you give them to let them on the straight and narrow? You know, I've got some personal family experience with this I can share if you'd like, but I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Well, you know, this is one I struggle with because I think we are very motivating. I think we're very optimistic. But I do know that we are financial mutants.
Yep.
And we attract financial mutants, meaning that we are kind of graduate level studies once you have some of the basics under control. And discipline, realize I put the cornerstone of what success is deferred gratification. And discipline and deferred gratification are siblings. They're definitely sharing blood. And so if somebody comes to us and they're struggling with just basic debt, I'm talking about credit cards and other things, I think that you have not graduated to the level of sophistication that we nail everything for you. You've got to get motivated and get serious. So I don't know if that's because everybody, this is where freezing credit cards, that doesn't appeal to me because I've never struggled with that decision. And I'm trying to give a good answer here, but also be realistic that I think somebody's got to get motivated. And I don't even mind throwing out some love to a neighbor.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
and that's what, you know, Dave Ramsey and Ramsey Solutions, their thought on getting you out of debt, I have seen no one more effective than getting people excited. I know you have an experience, share that you could kind of talk about what you've seen in that aspect.
I have some family members who I told them over and over, hey, you got to get this credit card thing under control, and we'd work through some ways to get it paid off, and they'd be good for 6 or 8 months, and they get right back into it. Well, finally, their church was doing one of Dave's courses, and they kind of went through it and like, oh my gosh, you don't believe all this stuff that I'm learning. And they learned all these systems of how to handle it, and they were able to change. And I was like, I've been saying this stuff to you guys forever, but maybe I just wasn't saying the right way. In terms of like strategies, you know, we talk all the time about how debt is like a chainsaw. Well, if you're using a chainsaw and you keep cutting yourself, right? You're like, oh, I'm going to cut myself. You might be the kind of person that just can't use a chainsaw.
Yeah.
So if you're someone who's having trouble with credit cards, who keeps getting yourself in, you might be the ideal candidate to not use credit cards.
Yeah.
So what if you're missing out on the travel rewards? So what if you're missing out on the cash back? If you cannot pay it off on a month-to-month basis, you need to be a cash payer or maybe a debit card or something like that. Credit cards might not be your jam. Or when you go to the store and you go to buy furniture and they say, hey, if you open up a store credit card, we'll give you 20% off. You might want to say, you know what? I'll just pay 20% more because I know I can't handle that store credit card. It's going to get me in trouble. You may have to actually go cold turkey, and there's nothing wrong with that. There are systems out there, whether it be envelope systems or whatever the thing is, you have to understand where you are and be realistic about that. Just because your friends or your family or your colleagues can use debt in that way, if you can't do it well and you can't do it responsibly, it just might not be for you, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think it's kind of interesting that we can throw some love towards Dave, that he's great at getting people motivated. I do think it's interesting, and this is kind of the closing. Once you graduate where you get the debt under control, know that that's financial mutant status. And that's what I wish, because there are a whole nother group of people that don't struggle with the debt. And that's always where I was, is that I've never had the credit card issues. I'm just a naturally disciplined person. Would Ramsey be willing to admit that there are people within his tribe that also could be financial mutants, that they're not going to run afoul of the debt? And that's something I think that we'll see over time.
But I'll tell you what, listening to this show is a good start just to get your financial juices cooking. So if this is a question for you, you're in the right place, and we are happy to have you.